In fact, FIFA say they do not go against the transfer fees, but against the salaries. The negotiating position of the players is thus compromised. So, abolish the transfer fee, and then we will only talk about salaries. The whole system's wrong. It was invented by people who have no knowledge of the profession.
Oh, that's a silly observation, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, you can listen to both of those guys that are positioning themselves, and so they should, and so they would. They're looking after their well-being. Jonathan Barnett wants meaningful discussion. Well, I'm not entirely sure who gets to determine what's meaningful and what's not. An agent doesn't get to determine it. They're governed, or they will be governed by a set of rules in the same way that everybody else is. And if they don't like it, they can ply their trade in another profession, can't they? The bottom line is it's not for the good of the game. Agents are not for the good of the game. They're for the good of the people that they work for who don't actually pay them. So the argument is always compromised by the nature of the construct of how agents operate. I can understand what Mino is saying. Because
abolish the transfer fee.
Well, of course he's saying that, because if you don't have to pay a transfer fee, where's the money going to land? It's going to land in the pockets of already outlandishly well-remunerated professional footballers. The fact that the pyramid system and that the ecosystem of football is benefited by transfer fees, the money goes round into football clubs. It doesn't take 10 to 15% out of it and put it in the hands of an agent whose sole function in life is to, of course, make his client better when we find out who his client actually is, because normally the client is the one that pays you. Often in this instance, the client isn't the one that pays you. The client is the one that gets the benefit of your services, and someone else pays you. So this ridiculous argument that somehow or another agents are for the good of the game is nonsense. The transfer fees being abolished is nonsense. And for Mino to turn around and say it's being put together by people that understand the profession, what in God's name are you talking about? You buy a player, you capitalise him on your balance sheet, you depreciate him over the period of your contract, and you sell him, or you buy another player and you add him and you make profit and you lose money and you value your playing squad and you move around in a professional manner. So taking away reducing transfer markets, I'm all for that. Capping transfer spends, I'm for that too, because I believe that football needs to have some governance so we can stop the deluge of nation-state money and huge oligarchs being able to spend precisely what they want and breaking the ecosystem.
But here you've got two major agents saying, look, something's got to be done. Barnett's saying we'll come to the table, and Mino's saying the system is wrong.
But it's self-serving, both of them. Now, let's get something clear. If, to take a rather ignorant observation from Jonathan, their rules are illegal, then you've got nothing to worry about, have you? Sit there and carry on doing precisely what you want. Because if there's an element of illegality about internal rules, right, then you're not going to have to worry about it because they're not going to be enforceable, are they? The fact they are enforceable, the fact that there is a governance and a protocol now around how agents should be regulated, what they should do is they should sit there and go, we've had it on our toes for so long, we've gotten away with murder. It's been the Wild West. It was the Wild West when the Premier League first came in, and then for some reason the football authorities suddenly decided to let us get even more murderous in our ability to be able to rinse the game full of money. And rather than keep that on the down low, we've made it so evident that we A, aren't a force for good, and B, getting paid so much money that ultimately the authorities have been forced to do something. Now, where they're right, Jim, of course, is FIFA are hardly the organisation you want to take any edicts from, are they?
No.
Because they've hardly got their house in order.
In terms of credibility.
But they are the authority. And if the agents don't like it, they can, of course, ply their trade somewhere else, can't they? The bottom line is that capping them, and let's be clear, capping an agent on a 10% fee of a transfer fee in the elite leagues where these guys are operating, because we ain't talking about the leagues right now. They're not talking for the guy that represents players at Accrington Stanley. Jonathan Barnett is talking for himself at the high end of the pyramid. Mino Raiola is certainly talking for himself. So the average transfer fees that they're talking about is 30, 40, 50 million quid. So the average fee that they're being allowed to rinse out of football is 5 million quid. Are you outside of your mind that you think that somehow that's restrictive?
Oh, yeah, but to be fair to Barnett, he talks on behalf of all agents everywhere.
No, he's talking
agents at all levels of the game.
He may well want to allude to that position because it makes his position have more credibility. He's really talking about himself and his opportunities. And 10% of in any other profession is considered quite a significant return. If you sell your house, you don't expect to pay an agent 10% for selling your house, do you? And then they'll talk about, well, actually, if you go into the film business, or the theatre business, but the theatres ain't paying the agent to get the talent is paying his agent. So all of their arguments are just complete and utter BS.
Yeah, but can you
They're
not see
steeped in
more and more
self-interest.
players running down their contract, Simon? That's what's going to happen, isn't it?
Well, look, it depends upon the
seeing
landscape.
it.
Well, yes, of course it is, but they're doing it now. You can't get around that. The moment the Bosman ruling came into place and compensation wasn't able to be paid at the end of a contract because a contract period expired, and unless you were under 24, you didn't retain any rights as a football club. That was always the case. But that is the nature of doing business and protecting yourself against a player contract running down and being diligent. That's why you need directors of football. That's why you need people that are focused on the big picture, the micro and the macro views. And in this instance, can we really seriously sit here in any good consciousness and allow a platform for these agents to say anything vaguely resembling what they're talking about FIFA doing things because they want to look good? Well, they can only do things if they look good if you, by definition, are bad. Right? So you're answering your own questions. If FIFA look good by bringing you into order, it's because you're out of order. Yeah, and you're out of kilter with the reality of it all.
Yeah, but to be fair to the agents, they're fighting their corner here and they're right to do that.
I understand that. But only because football is so ridiculously inappropriate that it's allowed these goblins to get out of their boxes, get too far ahead of themselves, and now they need to be put back into the bottle because they've allowed them to go, you can represent this club and the buying club and the selling club and the player and his uncle if you want, because we don't care. And now what they're doing is finally getting some balls about them and getting some order into place and saying, right, we can't have this. There's conflict of interests. There's too much money going out of the game. And let's be clear. When we talk about corruption, illicit payments and poor performance, it's normally indexed to money and it's normally indexed to inducements and coercements. Follow the money and you'll always find an element of the reasons why bad things happen. Bad transfers go through. Money gets misappropriated. People get induced into signing players when they really should be signing that player because they got an inducement from XYZ person. Start to lock these agents down. All good agents should look at this and go, we shouldn't be frightened of transparency. We shouldn't be frightened of regulation. And by the way, 10%... if we cap that and say to FIFA, you can't come back and revisit it for 20 years, 10% ain't a bad turn. 10% of a transfer fee. Yeah. And then Mino Raiola comes out with this particular earth-shattering nugget, pulls it out of the back of nowhere, I can imagine where it comes from Mino, and says the ecosystem will be better off because the players need more money and those that have put a transfer system in place don't understand the game. Are you outside of your ghastly little mind? The whole ecosystem of football is held together by proper transfer markets.
But with respect, they are already doing it. Lingard's no transfer fee. Pogba.
No, that's bad administration. That's also Man United not being prepared. But Man United can fix that easy. You can say with us, we'll play you more. Here's your contract. We'll give you an opportunity to play more. You're going to have the yin and yang, the up and the down. I got Andy Johnson on a free transfer in exchange for Clinton Morrison, and 5 years later I sold him for 10 million quid. In those days, 10 million quid is probably 50 million quid now. It happens. You know, if you're prepared for what the industry throws out as challenges, you're prepared to be able to find a solution to them. And the solution isn't not regulating agents and disbanding the transfer market because it enables players to have all of the transfer fees in their salaries. Yeah. How does that work?
If Jonathan Barnett, Mino Raiola invited you for Christmas lunch today, would you go?
Not if you tied my tongue to the back of a bus and dragged me there.
Incidentally, the man who's offered his car parking space for you at Hull, Lance Smeltz, has been on saying he's serious. You're welcome to his pass on Boxing Day. Jim, you're extremely cheeky. I wasn't being cheeky, Lance.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.